So today I'm going to talk about the film The Lion King and how our faith can inform us when we watch that film and what little things we can look out for as Christians. And first of all, there's what I think is one of the most impressive openings to any film, never mind animated films, but the best opening to any film ever, where we have that wonderful Elton John and Tim Rice song being sung, The Circle of Life, and all the animals of the animal kingdom are coming for a big celebration. And what is that celebration that they're coming for? It's the birth of the new Lion King, Simba, the character Simba. And so you've got this wonderful scene, and to me it's almost like a scene of what heaven might be like at Mass, because they all come here to worship the new king. And it's the monkey, Rafiki the baboon, who is the one who lifts up the newborn king and shows him to the world, to his kingdom. He lifts him up and elevates him. And I use that scene quite often in homilies for the Feast of the Epiphany. Epiphany means to show forth. And also for the presentation of the Lord and the presentation of Mary. It helps children especially, but us adults as well, who maybe are children at heart, to understand what's going on in those feasts as well. That's offering up both to God and to the people. And of course at Mass we have the priest elevating the host as well. So it's almost like a big heavenly scene there at the beginning. Very dramatic, wonderful music in the background, and the animals are almost like all the angels and saints. So very evocative and really touches our imagination, that first scene. The rest of the film, as most of you have probably heard at some point, is loosely based on the story of Hamlet. The directors and the writers say it's an original story and there will be elements of Hamlet, but it's also reminiscent of stories from the Old Testament. So there's the story of Moses and Joseph, two people who are forced into exile and then come back to rule or serve their people. And those two words are key. They give you a clue about what the rest of the film is about, ruling and serving, because in essence the film The Lion King is about wrong concepts and right concepts of what it means to be a king. And who does that remind us of? All those expectations of what a Messiah is, what the King of Israel should be, and Jesus turns everything upside down and shows us what it means to be the true king, and that is to serve. So you've got the character Scar on the one hand. He is the uncle, it's made obvious that he's evil from the beginning. They make his eyes look slightly evil, and he has his song and be prepared, and his friends are the hyenas, the outcasts of the society, almost representative of demons in a way, or evil spirits. And Scar thinks he's entitled to be the ruler, and so his concept of king is to dominate people. That's that feeling of self-entitlement is brought out when he finally does become king, and he neglects his people, his kingdom, so much that there is drought, there's no food. He's just lounging around expecting everybody else to do what he tells them to do, and the kingdom suffers as a result. That model of ruling by dominating obviously isn't the right way of being a king. So what Scar wanted wasn't actually the right thing for the people. And of course Simba as well, the key thing for Simba is this question of who are you? It's a journey of discovery for Simba to work out what he's being called to do. It's his vocation story essentially. He knows he's destined to be king through inheriting from his father, Mufasa. And Simba, the song, the joyful song, "Oh, I just can't wait to be king," he's singing that as a young, naive, innocent little cub. and there are phrases like no one's saying do this, no one's saying be here. So he thinks that when he's going to be king, the great thing about being king is not being told what to do and being able to do whatever you want. And again, we know that that's not the best way to be king. True freedom doesn't come from doing whatever we want, because we've got to respect everybody else's freedom. True freedom comes from giving ourselves totally to other people, freely and willingly. So he's got that song, I Just Can't Wait to Be King. And then, you know, the very sad scene that we all have probably cried at, the first death on screen of a Disney film. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this, but I've chosen this film because I presume that most people have seen it. But Mufasa dies, and Simba doesn't realise that it's his uncle that has killed him, and he blames himself. So he goes off into exile, a self-imposed exile, because he feels the guilt and shame and doesn't feel that he'll be accepted by his community. So he goes off and he meets these two characters, Timon and Pumbaa, who are very upbeat. Timon is a meerkat, Pumbaa is a boar, a warthog, something like that, from the pig family. And they give him this philosophy, Hakuna Matata, which means no worries, and it's being carefree and not having any responsibility. And for a while, that is what Simba, the character Simba, needed. It was almost like he was going off, getting some space, going on retreats almost, trying to get some space away from all that expectation and responsibility to work out who he really is. He gets to know himself, even though he's living by a philosophy that he can't live by when he finally becomes king. And it's a happy time for him. And he keeps asking that question, who am I? And he's brought to his senses by a chance encounter with his childhood friend, who he happens to be betrothed to, Nala, another a lioness. And it's feelings of love that are what changes his heart, that makes him think, actually, I am being called to do something else. And when he finally realizes who he is, he goes back to his kingdom, to the animals that he's supposed to be responsible for, and defeats the evil dominating empire, so to speak, takes away the reign of sin, if you want to call it that, and fulfills his vocation. He becomes, in the words of our own St. Catherine of Siena, he becomes who God created him to be, if you can understand what I mean. I know it's a cartoon, but that's the character of Simba, and he then realizes that to truly be the king, he has to serve. That is reminiscent of our popular hymn, The Servant King. It's who Jesus was. Jesus shows us how to lead people is to be a servant, and we know that one of the Pope's titles is the servant of the servants of God. Turns that supposed hierarchy upside down, because the Pope is there to serve everybody else. But through that example of service, then he is able to lead us too in a wise and holy way. So I bet you didn't think there was that much in The Lion King, whether it's intentional or not. It's a joyful film and it reaches our imagination, but we can get so much more out of it if we look with the eyes of faith and look out for those things that point us towards God.